Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So this is going to be another Hearts Ohm video after like 8 days without a video on Hearts Ohm. You know, the reality is it's like when we get into a certain mode, it gets hard to shift. It does get hard to shift. So now while I'm feeling a lot more of a shifted mode, I want to delve into kind of a continuation, but yet totally different from the last video, because the last video we were pointing out some things that are used to control humanity and then some of the natural order of things. And I want to go deeper into what maybe many people have never even really thought about. And again, this is the case for the majority of the people on the planet, is that we are so wrapped up in our everyday lives, we never have a chance to take a step back and say, what am I looking at? Well, here you're looking at Patreon, and we want to thank those people that are supporting us on Patreon, because you make these videos possible. You absolutely do. We couldn't do it without your support, and we do understand the dark control structure. They control through the monetary system. That's their number one thing that they do control through. They use belief systems as well, and political systems and ideologies. So, when I was on this kick as a kid, it's like I got to find the original Christianity, as it was in my mind. I got to say I was maybe 17, 18, something like that. And I was like, I'm going to find the very, very first true form of Christianity, because I know something doesn't feel right. But what it ended up leading me to was eventually delving deeper into mythology in general. And there's a lot to be learned in myths. And then also back into paganism, Wiccan circles and stuff. So I went from taking part in church services of all different denominations, you name it. I tried it, and then going in to synagogues and going with friends to synagogue services as well to explore Judaism, and then eventually pagan circles. And it was all just a journey of consciousness, and that's all there really is. Animism is thought to be the world's oldest belief system. Animism. And when we look at the, I guess I would first want to say the shamanic cultures is really how I would want to describe it. This is the oldest belief system we have. You can say Hinduism is the oldest organized or kind of organized religion, and that Hinduism has so many different variations as well. But animism is simply the belief that consciousness resides in everything, and it's in different layers and different levels.
See, I never knew there was an ism for this, but this is what I found to be true in my own life. Is animism is probably the closest thing I can find to what my belief system is. And I really strongly encourage everyone to explore their world as much as possible, and don't allow anything or anyone indoctrination to stop you from looking at things. I mean, that's the biggest robbery I think we can do to ourselves in this lifetime, is to deny ourselves that quenching of the curiosity. That thirst of knowledge runs really deep in so many of us, and I think it's a denial of the soul if you are in a belief system that's really crippling that ability for you to explore who you are. And I think that it can tamper with the soul and the soul growth, because we did come here for expansion. And I really do. I like this animism. It's very nice, but I'm never going to slap a label on myself, because I've never seen anything that's just the way I am. And I think that's something that we all need to remember, is you are so incredibly unique. Labels are good to a point, but it's only to that point. And then, it's time for you to break out of the mold and make yourself that unique spark that you came here to be.
Yeah, and I should point that out because what I want to distinguish here is that the people that we would call animists didn't call themselves animists. They didn't say to the Europeans, that were exploring the Amazon, "Oh, we are animists." No, we're not. They didn't know. No, but they simply had a knowing. They had a knowing, and this is the difference too when we're talking about belief systems. They knew that everything ultimately has a consciousness. Animism, so I'll read this to you, is a belief system that dates back as far as we go, and it's still practiced in forms around the world today. At its core, animism holds that all things, from rocks and trees to animals and humans, possess a spiritual essence or soul. The spiritual essence is often referred to as spirit or life force. The word animism comes from the Latin word Anima, meaning soul or life. The term was first coined by anthropologists in the 19th century to describe the belief systems of indigenous people all around the world. While animism may seem foreign or exotic to those unfamiliar with it, it has played an important role in shaping many cultures through human history. In fact, animistic beliefs are among the oldest known religious traditions, absolutely predating organized religions such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, by as far back as we can go, which really the farthest back we can go is limited by the wall of the Younger Dryas period cataclysm. And we really don't have a clear picture of things before that period of time, which again, for those that may be new to this, is around 12,000, somewhere between 11,700 and 13,000 years ago. There was an event that wiped out the majority of life on the planet. This is one of the flood stories. This is the big flood. But again, it may be one of many floods, as again, this disaster period tends to roll around in cycles, and we have cycles that we call the yugas that we go through. Despite its ancient roots, animism remains relevant today. Many people still hold animistic beliefs and incorporate them into their daily lives. However, animism differs from other religions and belief systems in several key ways, including its emphasis on spirits rather than gods or deities. That's big. Just everything is spirit. No gods, no deities, no things to worship. But obviously, you can ask for favors. You can ask in a respectful manner, like if you're gonna cross a real precarious mountain path, you might send out positive intentions and ask, the spirit of the mountain to let you pass in a safe manner.
And that's exactly how we are to talk to everything. I think a lot of people probably have blockages when it comes to hearing the conversation of the trees, the birds, the leaves, the wind, the water. Everything has something to say to you, and it is going to talk to you in a manner that you will understand. But what I have found is most people deny themselves that ability to hear the conversation, to listen to the conversation. So it's a block that is put there by you. So that's the only thing holding us back to hear this conversation that we have when we're out in nature. And oh my gosh, that's probably the most important conversation you could ever have, is to be able to hear, listen to nature, feel the frequency, allow yourself to engage, get grounded. There's so many studies when it comes to grounding with nature. What it can do for the body really is beyond any type of healing modality I have seen. If we were able to just simply ground every day, all day long, and use the earth for our medicine, I don't think that the medical world would have any business at all anymore.
Yeah. This is from Britannica. Animism, belief in innumerable spiritual beings concerned with human affairs, capable of helping or harming human interests. So, interestingly enough, animistic beliefs were first competently surveyed by Sir Edward Burnett Tyler in his work Primitive Culture, 1871. Oh, 1871. You know, if you look closely enough, you can see that the secret societies in this world, they utilize certain time periods. And I gotta see if Cindy could go backwards and look at this year for conjunctions. There must have been something major. There had to be some sort of major shift in consciousness in 1871 because too many things were put in motion in 1871. You know, again, that's 152 years ago. And, you know, in the bigger scheme of things, they're always sowing seeds ahead of human consciousness's expansion. So they know we're going to expand. They know we're going to have certain revelations for ourselves. And they plant seeds that will give us those aha moments, but then grab us and keep us going down one of their paths when we talk about the control system. So it goes on to say none of the major world religions are animistic, but they might have little elements thereof because animism, again, is the original way of viewing things. And so they've captured some elements that resonate with us on the deepest level, but then they've incorporated it into their control belief systems. So it is the religious belief according... Now, it's interesting, again, to see how people word this because, you know, Britannica is going to be very, very much the control system. The first article felt like it was somebody that's expanded their consciousness a little bit more. Here, you know, again, it's a religious belief that all living beings have a spirit and or a soul. No deity or God in animism. They believe all things contribute to the world and should be respected and or feared. Very different than what we have, you know, go and conquer and subdue and utilize everything for yourself. You know, we give you this planet to use and abuse. No, you wouldn't dare use and abuse because you recognize consciousness is everywhere. This is understanding the oneness of all things to a much higher degree than we have in our modern religions. And this is exactly what's enabled the control system to control us and keep us cut off from everything else. Animism was often combined with what they would call ancestor worship. Yeah, they want you to think, oh, these heathens are worshiping their ancestors. What they're doing is they're petitioning their ancestors. They know their ancestors are still there. Because many of them, especially in other ages, could easily see and communicate with them alive or dead. And so they knew their ancestors were there. So again, they were calling them in a respectful way and asking them, what do you see from your perspective about this? What do you feel? You know, grandfather, you had skills that I don't have. What would you do? You know, because we're starving. We need more food. What do we do? So they would call on their ancestors. Shintoism holds these elements in it today in Japan as well.
You know, there is when it comes to biofield tuning, there is a method you can use to bring about healing in the ancestral river in our body, because ancestors usually carry a lot of trauma, and many times in a lifetime somebody might be called to heal that trauma. So ancestors are just very fascinating to me. There's also, when it comes to Vedic astrology, there's information in there that it talks about calling on your ancestors, and the only way the ancestors are going to come is if you call on them. But there's certain nakshatras that it's very, very important yet very valid that you go out of your way to call on them. So I would encourage anyone and everyone to do that, because they need permission. They need permission to work in your life and allow themselves to come in your life. And you can receive gifts from your ancestor. If your mother or grandmother has passed on and all of a sudden you pick up this certain talent, you've been gifted what they had in the 3D. And that's why we talk about people having gifts. It's not that one person is more gifted than the other. No, this is like a literal thing that happens. People get gifts from their ancestors.
Yeah. For me, when my mom died too, all of a sudden, my love for the old time music went up a notch. So all of a sudden, really looking more into jazz and things of that sort of nature, which she loved. And it would tickle me a little bit more than it did when she was alive. And this is because, she again passed it on, because she's now up in what we would call 5D. And so she's kind of drawn upwards up into the higher self. And, she's bequested one of her loves to me. And that's wonderful. So they understood this. This is truly, when you want to look at, okay, well, what is Golden Age, Silver Age beliefs? These are Golden Age, Silver Age beliefs. This is how the universe works. Nothing could be farther from a golden age belief that every single soul out there is just, the only intention of the soul is to serve another being. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Here you see tribal religious leaders in animist societies, often called shamans. This person serves as a voice and intermediary between the people and the spirits. And that's exactly what Cindy especially and myself also do, where we are shamans and we get things in different ways. Cindy is the best shaman I've ever met or ever even known of. She can always find a soul. I've yet to find a time where she doesn't have an inkling of where somebody that's passed on is. She'll get a feeling. She might not see exactly where they are, but she'll know if they're still, working things out, if they've already progressed, if they're back in a body, they've already taken another body, they've moved on, or, in the case of somebody I knew that passed on a long time ago, 1984, they were still stuck because of trauma from war, just until a few years ago, still stuck. And so now they're moving free. This is, again, 4D, there's not the time like there is here. 3D and time, they kind of go hand in hand. And 3D, again, is a place where we come to learn. But like the guide said, the vast majority of our time, quote unquote, is spent not in a body. The vast majority of, another way to word it is, life in a 3D body truly is precious, because it's by far the smallest amount of proportion of what our consciousness is experiencing.
And that ability to be here in the 3D is really, truly exceptional. And it is such a gift, because that's where we can bring expansion to our souls. When we talk about shamans, some people are just naturally in that state where they can walk between worlds. And so together, the 3D along with spirit, they just bring everything together. They can translate information. And sometimes people are kind of there permanently, and they go through life and they have all these troubles because they don't understand 3D world completely. They're viewing things from their own specific dimension. And this was something that, is a very hard lesson for me to learn, because I was not on the same playing field as those that were in the 3D. I just could not make it work. I couldn't make things click. And I was really hard on myself for that. It just really dug into my soul until I realized that, okay, I'm seeing things from a different dimension. I see things and I sew things together that other people do not see. And that's not a bad thing at all. It's not bad. It's just something that's not recognized. Everybody has the ability to do this. It's definitely something that can be learned. But for some, it's like a natural state. and that's just where they are, and they can be very, very misunderstood. So if you have that one friend that always does this one thing, know that they might be viewing things from a totally different dimension, or viewing into another world that you simply don't understand. There's nothing wrong with them, and for you too. Give yourself that break, give yourself that understanding and that compassion that you might be viewing things differently. And then this is very useful when it comes to changing from one age to the next. It's like you're stepping over this cusp of reality, and you're pulling the two together. It's like you're mending two different time, space things, and you're helping people make sense of other things. It's just, when we are in school, they train that out of us to such a high degree. I remember the papers that I would get back were always full of red check marks. It's because I just couldn't grasp it. I could not get it. And I really suffered for that. And I hate to see people do that and go through things, because it just creates more and more problems through life, through relationships, through work. It can be quite a struggle until you realize, hey, you're one of those that walks between worlds. You're looking at things from all different perspectives. I can watch Mike when he's doing his Qigong, and I can see all of the little creatures, and they look like fishies, and they're all working inside of his joints, inside of his body. They are doing something. They're helping the human body heal. And this is something that I can see that other people, they don't know where I'm coming from, but I'm so grateful to see that a lot of people are realizing this in themselves, and they're recognizing it in others, and we're not so hard on each other any longer.
Yeah, this has been fascinating for me because, being somebody that studied Qigong since I was a kid, really, that's when I first found myself drawn to things like prana, ki, chi, the life force. What is this life force? How do we manipulate it? And, it's just so fascinating that all these books that were written so long ago describing the practices, Cindy's describing to me what's happening energetically in my body as I'm moving through different moves and gathering life force and circulating life force, and she's verifying that all these things are right, because it's going down this meridian, now it's going over there, and now you're gathering life force over here, and now the color has changed. This is also what's given me verification of the different mantras. And so when I was doing Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a Buddhist mantra, it really is all about creating the light body Merkaba. And so I used to use that one a lot, especially like when we were out in New Mexico. And then I found myself a lot more out of body, having experiences of trying to control a Merkaba in the astral realm. And so, like when people have said, about flat earth and stuff, and I remember the perspective of flying away from Earth at a very high speed, leaving the body and looking back at Earth. So, this is part of that perception, but she's been able to verify for me that each mantra has a certain energetic frequency, and it does different things to us. When we use Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha Sharanam Ganesha, that is all about rooting and grounding. So it is the root chakra, and that's why it's traditional to start with Ganesha's mantra in many Hindu circles, because Ganesh is in many ways the lord of the root chakra. And the chakras are dimensional gateways, absolutely. And these beings are real. They are absolutely real. But when you call on them, they send energy to you, and that is a certain frequency. And so as you climb up through the different chakras, it is said that there's a different Hindu deity that resides over each chakra. Yeah, that's actually correct. And by doing different chakra mantras, you can overcome issues with different chakras that you might have. You might be somebody that hasn't been able to speak up in a relationship or at work, and so your throat chakra is closed off, and you might need to work on that. Or you might have been hurt in a relationship and your heart chakra is closed off, and you need to work on that. Again, the energy closes off on the higher densities, and then over time, the physical body starts to deteriorate, and you have disease set in because the energy is not flowing. This is exactly what we have here. The life force is very real, and the life force is in everything. It's in rocks. It truly is. As you see today, the largest population of animists is in sub-Saharan Africa. They also exist in Native American tribes in North and South America, and Aborigines in Australia are considered animists. So, they understand that everything is consciousness. When I was first able to clearly see the life force, one of the things that was disconcerting is that, well, I could see it off the trees, but I could see it off even tables. Why am I seeing life force off a table? You might say, well, the table is not alive. But think about this in the case of quantum physics and subatomic particles. It's again, well, there are some errors in quantum physics. And of course, they're never going to explain to us things exactly as they are when we're under this dark system. It is all about consciousness. So the smallest units, which we can see, I could see, Cindy could see, and many of you guys can see too, just going about in the air. So when I'm looking all the time, I see the smallest units floating about, and they're going in different directions often. But they can coalesce around objects, and they do. It's our consciousness that brings about things. And yes, in this 3D world, you might have a vision of a perfect work table, and then you put it together. But ultimately, it was a tree, and it takes another form, but you still have all these small little pieces moving around at exceedingly high speeds. That make up this apparently very, very solid table. And, again, we understand that things are not as solid as they truly appear to be. So, again, everything is consciousness. We could look at it and we could see that animism goes along very well with what we've learned about the world from a scientific point of view. And yet again, we understand the science is twisted in many ways at the same time, because they know we're gonna expand our consciousness. They know we're gonna catch on to a lot of things, so they always want to lay these traps to get us going down dogmatic routes. This is a little bit more in depth, and I'll give you guys the link if you want to go into it as well, and going deeper into animism. Again, these are all labels, and of course these labels come about in a dark age. So these are dark age labels for what's thought to be taken as belief systems, but the reality is it's not really a belief system when you know something. When you know something, it's no longer belief. And, again, we could start breaking down words and see lie, L-I-E, right? You could see the words in words and how they're used to distort things. Mind is consciousness which has put on limitations. You are originally unlimited and perfect. Later on, you take on limitations and become the mind. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And, many people are gifted throughout this lifetime those experiences of expansion, which give us a better idea of the world around us that we live in. And I don't think labels are a bad thing at all. I think that they're very, very important to help give us a definition so that we at least have some grasp on this world that we live in. So I think labels can be abused, though. I think they can throw around certain things to such a high degree that then eventually it's just meaningless. But they are a good tool. They do have purpose. And dark age tools are not shouldn't be completely shunned because it's part of our exploration as well.
So you have this universal consciousness field out of which individual consciousness comes. And that's in agreement with, again, these animistic thoughts are in agreement with Taoism in so many ways. There's far more in agreement than there is in disagreement. And really, again, with the Hindu point of view on things, and the same thing, again, if we go deeper into Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, all the mystery traditions, what really sticks out is that, fundamentalist Abrahamic point of view, no, you were created to just be a slave. No, that's absolutely not the case. That's basically what the slave masters want to give to those that they are trying to keep under control. But the reality is, you can go higher than they can, because in the path that they've taken, they've limited themselves. They've cut themselves off from everything, and we're still tied into the all. And so we could go much, much higher than they can, and we could go and experience that oneness, which is a beautiful experience. It is beyond words.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's expansion to the highest degree, understanding that we're all here for one another, and we're all here having an experience that we created for ourselves for the purposes of expansion. And it's a blessing. It's truly, truly a blessing.
So thank you again for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Looking forward to your comments, your thoughts, and what you have experienced yourself. Please do feel free to share. Source bless. Namaste.
Namaste.